So welcome to everybody today for joining us on this webinar about how to grow during a crisis. I guess really the intro is not just about actually the bottom line on finance in terms of how to grow. It's all about your personal development, learning new skills, a reconnection with the human side electronically, and also around goals, about the personal growth. So I believe I've got Matt Holland, who is the orchestrator of this, is allowing me control of the slide. So the slide should come through as I press. I know there might be a bit of a lag, but I'd also say that with anybody with any questions, if they could just drop them into the chat room, Matt and the team will curate them and then send them to me. So we can put to our guests today who are speaking. So without further ado, I'll just press the button and make sure that works. My name is Darren Wells. I'm talent CEO for EMEA. So welcome to everybody today. I also like a warm welcome to Vicky James, Talent Director at Great State, Anna Gowdridge, Director at Virgin Unite, welcome, and also to Edmund Monk, CEO at the Learning and Performance Institute for their efforts today in putting together the sessions for us to view and learn from. So thank you very much, guys, for doing that. As I said, Matt, please do keep us on track if we do lose our way a little bit, and feel free to jump in and, as I say, keep the reins on me, especially for being a bit too verbose sometimes, as I can be. But I thought I'd start the session really in terms of, before I begin, is just to tee up how I've kind of looked at this before I bring in our speakers today. And share some of my insights around crisis management and how I'm viewing it as an organisation here in the UK and Europe. And I guess really I wanted us to start, we'd started off before this happened in our comfort zones. Everybody's in control. We have an amount of clarity. We feel safe, and we go about our daily days and our objectives. And then all of a sudden we have a catastrophic effect of a crisis unknown to anyone before in our lifetime, which then we kind of enter, I'll call it the kind of fear zone area, where we have a lack of understanding, we have a lack of confidence, we have uncertain outcomes in our personal and our work life. We come really nervous and worried about the future and about the now. And this happens obviously in lockdown. So we seek, during that time, we kind of seek confirmation of our feelings. So we overindulge on news. You watch it morning, noon and night. And just to try and get a sense of what's happening. And, and that's kind of early in terms of the stages of I guess, I suppose, March time, really, when this started to kick on here in the UK. And I do believe that there is a kind of a pathway that you go down, which is, once you go through the acceptance of all this fear, you enter into a learn zone, really. You still fear, but you start to learn. And as we talk today, we're having a session with numerous people who've joined us today, and we start to think about new ideas. It also forces us, as we've done, to step out of our comfort zone. So not everybody's comfortable talking to 50 people on Zoom meetings, etc., and put yourself out there. So you do step out your comfort zone, and you gain new skills and experiences, and you start to deal with the challenges and the new problems that you have in your business from a personal point of view, relationship point of view, and also a work point of view. And this is the area I think that we are, as an organisation and talent, are at the moment in terms of that. And the way I go about that is obviously what we talk about today, is about planning, communicating and develop yourself. So the beauty of this is I do believe we'll go into a kind of a growth zone, and we talk about an increased knowledge of what we didn't know before, and we've been challenged that we do now have. And during that period, we've forged new relationships with people that we haven't spoken to before, and also stronger relationships with people that we've shared the experience with. And our organisation, especially, kind of implemented new ways of working in terms of remote. And I do believe that we found a new purpose to our business and the way we should operate. I think that's given us much more deeper meaning in terms of that. And out of that then becomes a self-confidence and a belief that everyone kind of feels as they move through the crisis. So that's kind of a positive area that I think we will be heading into in the not too distant future. And then beyond that is once you've learned all that, is the thriving area, which is, I think, is something to look forward to. And that's kind of my kind of assumption. I hope that's a segue for me to introduce my first guest, or our talent's first guest, and our guest today, Vicky from Great State. So, Vicky, I'm going to hopefully Matt can offer the control to you now. So, welcome, Vicky.
Hopefully.
There you go. I think you're there.
Okay. Hello. Hi. Thanks, Darren. Hello, everybody, and thank you for your time today. I'm Victoria James, and I work for a digital agency, Great State. We're based in London and Bristol. And I'm going to talk today about how we have tried to maintain, build, change our employee culture and the engagement we have whilst in lockdown. I must say, to start with, we're lucky moving into this crisis because we had a good base to work on. So we weren't sort of on a back foot to start with, but this period has given us a lot to think about, and we haven't always got it right. In the short time that we've been in lockdown, we've learnt a lot. One of the things that we've realised we had to do was reassess our values. Under times of stress, people revert to type, and certain traits in their personality become extreme or dominant. And this is the same for organisations, and we're in a period of stress, as Darren's just spoken about. You know, we're moving through those different stages. Many businesses will be judged on how they treat their employees during this period. So in the future, you know, there'll be some businesses that come out of this with a slightly better or worse PR angle, I suppose. We have used this time to understand the company's true values, and if they're different from how they are portrayed at the moment, if there's a large difference between how you portray yourself and how you actually are, then this can lead to a collapse in culture. So we have reconsidered the purpose of the organisation during this period and how we can openly communicate this to our staff to ensure that actions and decisions that they're making are aligned with our company priorities. Our only asset is our people, and protecting our business means protecting them. So psychological safety is really important during this time. You know, lives have been disrupted. We need to give clarity so people know what's happening in at least one part of their lives. We're a people-orientated business, and our people-orientated approach is really important at this point. So we have to allow opportunity to feedback and give people to give their opinions. So our values have been slightly well, I suppose we found out that most of our values are true. We have got psychological safety in work, and the transfer to remote working has shown that actually we have a good team, we have a strong culture, and moving forward, that's allowed us to do the next sort of 3 bits of our sort of framework, if you like. The next one is regular check-ins. We've carried on with a lot of our normal check-ins, like one-to-ones, where a manager will check in with each of their employees, chapter meetings, which are skill set meetings. So our creatives have a chapter meeting, our strategists have a chapter meeting, that kind of thing. And obviously project meetings as well, because that's what we work on every day. But we've also tried to assess if there are any people that are vulnerable or need a little bit more support in this time. So we've added in another layer just to make sure no one falls through the gaps. We've arranged buddies, and we've arranged specific check-ins for those people as well, just to make sure that everybody is really comfortable. As you may know, everybody is reacting differently to the situation, and it's really important for us that we support our staff in any way we can, and the regular check-ins is really important. But also it's about learning all the time about how not to say things in a remote working environment, because people do take things quite literally, or can take things in the wrong way if you're not really clear. So clarity is a massive thing for us at the moment. We are also a task-based culture. So we have a flexible team-based culture that has a central leader but works collaboratively. So we therefore have regular touch points with team leaders and heads of departments for them to feed back to individual teams. I have an open phone policy, so I'm available for extended hours, but not all the time. And that's made really clear that there are, guidelines around that. So I am available to speak to people before and after work, but I do have to have a work-life balance too, and I think that's really important for everybody to understand. Trust is a massive thing for us. We haven't always got it right, but we try really hard to get this one right. And I have heard some really crazy examples of no trust in this time from people in other organisations. And it's really interesting listening to our employees who live in shared houses or have flatmates, whatever, talking about how their employees are treated by their organisations during this period. We have a sort of flexible working day. So you can work either starting early or finishing late. So we have core hours of 10 till 4. We don't book any meetings outside of those hours. There are companies that are making their staff have an 8 o'clock meeting and a 6 o'clock meeting. And that to me just kind of feels like they don't really trust their staff to be working. So our staff really appreciate the flexibility we're giving them. We're letting people dictate more how they work and when they work. We understand people have different issues, and responsibilities. Some people have childcare issues. They've got partners who are key workers, so then they're the only childcare provider in their house, or they're looking after elderly relatives, that kind of thing. So we are being quite flexible around the time that people are working. They are very much dictating their working day. And this is a big event that we're dealing with at the moment, and we need to support people through that. I think that flexibility has been really appreciated. And actually, we've had the 2 busiest months we've ever had. We knew we were having those busy months before we came into lockdown, but obviously we have had to do those in a time of transition to everyone working remotely, and it's worked really well. So I think we have that trust. The regular check-ins have worked really well. Reiterating our values and what we expect from people, setting those expectations has been really clear, and that seems to have worked really well so far. So the last bit to kind of add into that is the fun bit. And I think we were talking earlier before we came on air, and some of the other guest speakers were talking about how they missed the chat in the morning, just saying hi, and that kind of general banter that you have in the office. We have when is it the right time to bring in the fun? If you rely on gimmicks to boost morale, that will only go so far. We have our usual, we used to go out for drinks on a Friday. We now do that online. We celebrate people's birthdays. We have team get-togethers. They get together socially. We do that. We do all those things as usual, but new stuff's come out of that as well. And I'm really pleased to say that that's come from the employees themselves rather than just top down kind of, we must have fun element. So people are doing podcasts. We're doing some gardening stuff together. People are creating playlists for everyone to listen to. One of our staff who's amazing at baking is doing some cookery demos for us. There's keep fit stuff going on. There's lots of really great stuff where employees are individually trying to connect with each other on a different level from work. We need to let our staff chat and not police their interactions too much. Balance comes back to trust. If you have trust in them, this should be relatively easy. We need to ensure clear delineation between work and play, and we do that. We expect our staff to work hard, but we also expect them to enjoy what they do. We don't have all the answers. I'm not saying we're perfect at all, but we are learning. And this is a time that we've found that we can reevaluate, adapt, learn, and hopefully when we go back to a sort of a normal, whatever that might be, working environment, we will come out of this better, which I suppose echoes what Darren was saying earlier. So we don't have all the answers, but it seems to be going okay so far. And that's me done. If you've got any questions.
Yeah, there's a few questions coming in, Vicky. I'll try and read them out for you. From Alex, I guess when you're working with the amount of tools that you've got, I guess Teams and Zoom, you've also got other productivity tools that keep people in connection. Do you recommend using any collaborative tools? This is from Alex, like Slack or ServiceNow.
So we moved away from Slack and we use Microsoft Teams instead of that. That's partly from a security point of view, just because of some of the projects we do. Not saying that Slack isn't secure, but from our point of view, we had to use certain things because of certain clients and all that kind of stuff. So we use Microsoft Teams for a lot of stuff. We also use some collaborative whiteboard software, which is really good, which I think is called Mira or Miro or something. I'll let you know that. But that's really great because you can all be on that together. You can stick Post-it notes on it. You can write on it. You can draw on it. You can stick photos on it. It's like being in a sort of a workshop, but virtually. And we've found that really useful. So that's probably one of our best tools at the moment.
Great. And probably just a couple more, if I may. I think it's an interesting one from Darwin, actually. He says, what's been the biggest difference for you personally in terms of maintaining positivity?
I think it's our employees. They're just, some people have really struggled with working remotely. I think actually being really busy is a really good thing. Because we're busy with work, we're all working together on things. There's lots of project conversations going on. People are having lots of collaborative conversations with lots of different people. But I have to say, it's really the employees. They've really kind of banded together and they've really supported each other. And I think it's made, I don't know, it's just been really lovely. It's been a really lovely thing to see. I think actually we've all realised that working remotely has made us realise just what we've got when we go back to work. Hopefully we'll all remember that for a long time. Before it becomes normal again.
Thanks. Another one, which I think is quite an important one, and one that I've faced as well. And this was from Melinda Matthews, I think. Thank you, Melinda. Was the depth of clarity and information you give to your employees and staff and the whole organisation. Question was, too much could be too scary, and too little makes rumour and guesswork. What's your view on that, Vicky?
We have actually taken the view to be quite honest about financials and what clients are telling us, and if we think anything's going to drop off or anything like that. We've talked about all the government support that we can get if things don't go too well. I mean, we're very lucky in the fact we're very busy at the moment, and our team who deal with client relationships and things like that have done an amazing job of keeping those channels open and helping the clients to get through stuff, because we're fine, we can work remotely and we can carry on doing everything we do, and we can do it really well. We've proven that actually we can switch over one day to the next and it's kind of seamless. There's a little few bits and pieces, but that's it. But really it's our clients that have suffered the most, because they aren't in such a maybe tech ready business, or they don't have the tools that they can work online. And so we've had to give them a lot of support and offer them use of our equipment or our software or whatever, so they can carry on working. And the team have worked, I mean, the IT team have been amazing. They've worked exceptionally well. Right. And the client service team have been great as well. But they have good relationships with their clients, so that's brilliant. But to get back to the question, I think we have been as honest as we can be, but we've always tried to temper it with the positive as well. So we have said, this could all go wrong. We don't know what's going to happen in a couple of months. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. We don't know how it's going to affect our clients. We're okay, we can work, we can do whatever, but if there's no pipeline coming in, then that's when things get a bit tricky. So we've just asked people to try and future-proof as much as possible, and they have really latched onto that, and they are really pragmatic about that. They are worried about their stuff, but they can see from the finance reports we're doing that actually we're doing really well, and we're coping well, and there's been no productivity loss or anything like that. So actually that side of their life seems kind of okay. Hopefully.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks. There's a lot more questions that have come in. So I will say to because obviously we've got limited time. I've got Matt obviously trying to keep me on the rails there. So thank you, Vicky.
That's right.
And the questions, what we'll do with the questions, we'll put them to the panelists anyway later, and perhaps we can get them answered and sent out at the end of the session.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Vicky, for that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And now to our next speaker, Anna Gowdridge of 100% Human at Work at Virgin. Hello, Anna.
Hi there.
Great. Thanks for attending today, and thanks for putting this together for the members today. I guess you've got your control over there. Do you want to go ahead with your?
Yeah, I think it's now not going to take any notice of me. Hold on. Let me try a different button. No, it's not going to pay any attention to me. I will talk and maybe not have slides because, oh no, there we go, it seems to be going. So I run an initiative called 100% Human at Work. It's a charitable initiative that's a partnership with a number of different organisations, and our focus really has been on how you can think about the future of work and the trends that happen in the world of work, but fundamentally thinking, how do we shape that to be the future of work we want and put people at the heart of everything businesses do? And we've built a movement of about 450 companies worldwide who are engaging in that with us, who are part of that conversation. And the way we've worked, not right now, but is to bring businesses together physically most of the time, in the UK, the US, Australia, to be a learning collective, to be organisations who are testing new ways of working that are better for people, who are sharing ideas and innovation, who are experimenting is a term we're really keen to use so that people don't have to have the right solutions, and who are then sharing with each other to learn how to do things better. In recent times, we actually haven't changed that model vastly, because we've found that knowledge sharing and new ideas and understanding what others are doing is a real need for businesses at the moment. I'm just going to look at my watch so I can make sure I stick to our time. And also we're collating case studies and examples and new things that we're hearing about, so that we can start to build a living library that people can dip into if they're having different challenges in the people space. And once we move out of this immediate mode, we're looking at how do you continue to convene businesses around the long-term implications and how we rebuild. And so I was going to share with you, we're talking to businesses on a daily, weekly basis at the moment, understanding what they're doing and understanding what today is about. And we've seen an interesting change of phases over recent months, weeks. I lose track of time, as I'm sure other people are. But in the very early weeks, the response was really tactical. It was what do I have to do today? How do I physically get everyone out of the office? How does my IT work? How are people working around having children suddenly at home? Do I need a whole load of new HR policies? What's the government guidance? And also, very sadly, having to furlough workers in many organisations. So going through the actual process of that. A lot of that has settled a bit. In recent weeks, we've moved into what I think of more as the day-to-day phase, and that's really starting to think about how you're adding value into teams again. Such a huge focus on mental health. That's not going to be short-term, but there's a real focus on how do we help people with the understandable fear and anxiety they're going through. In the last 2 weeks, we're seeing businesses starting to re-engage on learning and development. What does it mean now? How do we do it remotely? I know we're going to come on to that in the next presentation, so I won't go into that too deeply, but also a big focus on how we're keeping up motivation, we're getting teams to work well together, we're keeping productivity up. We're also seeing, very sadly, new things that organisations have to think about in terms of support for staff around dealing with bereavement and some of the more challenging issues, and how can organisations step into that. It's all quite new to many organisations, but they're starting to think about that. What hasn't come back to the fore for many organisations, but hopefully will, is a focus on diversity and inclusion. People just haven't had the headspace, and we're hopeful that we can bring that back into the conversation in the coming weeks, so there isn't just a massive loss in some of the great work businesses have been doing around that. And we're now, probably in only the last 4 or 5 days, starting to think about rebuilding. We're hearing companies talk about, what does it mean to go back into an office? What will that look like? How will people be near each other? We were talking, panelists were talking before about how do you go in a lift? What will co-working spaces look like? But also the future of work, all these trends around remote working and collaboration and structure of organisations. That may well have fundamentally changed now. And so how do we start a conversation to understand where we're at with that? I'm going to go back to mental health, because that's not going to be a short-term issue. There's going to be a real long-tail issue there. How do we feel comfortable around one another? How do employees enjoy spending time at the water cooler chatting about the soaps? I walk down the street and will literally walk outside cars to not be close to people. What's that going to do to us in the long term? And also, how do we think about people who may have been furloughed coming back into the business, and reskilling them and building them up and making them feel part of teams? So as we talk to businesses, some of the key insights we're hearing from good businesses is that you need to have agility and take action. Some of the fear we're surrounded by is kind of creating inertia in businesses. We talked to a great organisation called Next Jump last week, who shared their concept of getting your oars in the water. Don't be afraid to fail. Do things, test things, fail quickly, but move forward. And that's for your people and for your business overall. And also, there's a real challenge for people in people space. That one HR director said to me last week, she feels like what she's doing is the whole of her HR agenda in a couple of days. Suddenly I've got to rethink my whole L&D strategy, and suddenly I've got to rethink my whole D&I strategy, and it falls so quick. And so taking that into account. We are doing a lot of work. We've always worked in collaboration with others, but we're seeing a huge appetite for that. We're all in this together. How do we shape solutions together? Whether that's with networks, whether that's with other businesses, whether that's with entrepreneur networks, but also with your employees and with your teams. They may have the best ideas about how we do things, and they know what they're going through. We feel that there's going to be a real sense of great leadership coming through this, and terrible leadership. And the leaders for the future need huge visibility to their teams. They need to be really transparent. So going back to what Vicky was saying about trust is going to be so vital. But also I think there's an element of vulnerability that's really important to come from leadership. They're not above this. They're going through this the same as their teams are. And being open about that and having conversations will be really important. Helping teams to facilitate productivity, whether that's through technical stuff, whether that's through learning, whether that's through flexibility, but also making them feel valued. We're seeing organisations sending random gifts out to teams and things like that. So moments of joy that you can instill. Supporting mental health for the future will be crucial. Looking at times, they're going to be really quick now. But also being human. How we deal with our teams will be remembered in the long term. We're already seeing the organisations that are getting this wrong, and the ones who are giving bonuses to supermarket workers, who are helping their contractors even though they don't have to, who are bringing teams in and taking them on the journey with them. So there's lots of things that you can be thinking about for the future. We don't know a lot of it. There may well be new industries, there'll be different jobs. Our working world will change fundamentally, as will our working environment. But our feeling is that the organisations that put people at the heart of everything they do will be the ones who come out strongest. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I've got a few questions that have come in. There's one question actually that came from Jim Dorney, actually, that was which I think is a good one. Perhaps you may want to answer this as well. He's found obviously one of the challenges that is needed to do is we're working and supporting with team members who aren't strong natural communicators, the types more likely to live or on email or rather than face to face. What do you feel people could learn from how to manage the spread of communication, given the face-to-face has effectively been removed from the equation?
Yeah, I think it's having a variety of ways of communicating. I found in the very early weeks, our teams were on 9 hours of video calls, and so you're really stationary in front of a screen and looking at people all day, and that's been tempered a bit. And if people are more comfortable working via email, then making sure you change that communication style so it's right for the people you're working with. I'd be very reluctant to only communicate via email. Pick up the phone, set times when they're expecting to talk to you on the phone, so you're not suddenly appearing in people's lives unexpectedly if they're an introvert and want to do things in writing. But having that variety of the phone, the email, your other online channels, as well as the video, so it becomes a bit intrusive when you're on 9 hours of video calls a day.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good one. Thanks for that. And last one from Darwin. It's a very interesting areas. You talked about companies needing new policies, etc. Is there any advice you can give on the location templates to use so that people avoid reinventing the wheel?
So we don't have it online yet. We're going to have an online website that Talent has been helping with us in the next couple of weeks, where we will have a hub where companies, we've had people sharing new domestic abuse policies and grief policies and things like that, and we're going to be looking to get that all in one place so that where there's good work happening, others can use it.
Thank you, Anna. Fantastic. Really appreciate that. And on to our final panelist and speaker, Edmund, from the Learning and Performance Institute. Welcome, Edmund.
Thanks, Darren. You can hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah, sure, no problems.
Fantastic. So just a quick introduction. First of all, thank you to Darren and Matt for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to Vicky and Anna. I've been furiously making notes down here. That's what I was doing while you were talking. And there are a couple of things that you said, which it's lucky for me, a great segues into what I'm talking about, even though I hadn't seen your presentation. So thanks for doing that, even though it was unknowingly. The LPI, which I'm lucky to be the CEO of, is the largest body dedicated to workplace learning. It's not for profit, and data and research is at our core. So I just want to share in the next 10 to 12 minutes thoughts based on facts, based on research that we've gained that hopefully can help you understand maybe the world of work and how it's changed, and how we can adapt to create real impact through learning and development. I'm hoping that it will allow me to go through these slides. Okay, yeah, so as I say, just going to talk about how the world of work has changed, sharing some thoughts from major thinkers as well, and how we can adapt to create real impact through specifically learning and development. I think it's unquestionable that COVID-19 has accelerated digital transformation strategies for a lot of companies, but also for L&D functions within those companies. So I wanted to start by asking a simple but rhetorical question to everybody on here so that we don't get 48 answers. How do you think companies are comparing to humans in terms of speed of technological change and adoption? Well, the speed of technological change is unprecedented, and that's a word we're becoming more accustomed to using every day. These are unprecedented times and challenging times. But just take a look at this. I thought this was fascinating. If you look at how long it took the landline telephone, for example, to reach 50 million users, it's 75 years. The TV took 13 years. But if you look at the bottom there, it took Angry Birds Space just 35 days to reach 50 million users. I delivered this presentation quite recently. I was going to say recently, but everybody would be scared, in Madrid. It was in January. And it took Pokemon Go 36 hours to reach 50 million users. So we're living in really crazy times where technology permeates our lives. But how is that comparing to how companies are adapting? For more than a decade, companies have been talking about accelerated change, and I would say more than any other factor, the pace of change in technology, the economy and society is affecting the future of work. So even with the most forward-thinking leaders pondering the effects of this, actual transformation has been paradoxically very slow. The future of work requires restructured workplaces, redefined roles, rapid learning, which is close to the LPI's heart, and reserves of trust, which I know both Vicky and Anna mentioned earlier. But in truth, organizations are really having to step up now. That's the difference. COVID-19 is the ultimate VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it has become a catalyst for rapid business transformation. And at the heart of this is an acceptance, as Vicky and Anna mentioned earlier, actually, that the purpose of a business is people. In August 2019, you may have read last year, prior to COVID-19, obviously, the CEOs of America's biggest businesses, largest organizations, acknowledged that all stakeholders, and what they meant by that was workers, communities, partners, were all as valuable as their shareholders. We can be cynical about this, but it was interesting. It contradicted a long-standing assertion from Milton Friedman in 1970 that actually, it was in the New York Times, that the sole purpose of the business is to generate profit for shareholders. So it's a complete contrast in 2019. The organization was the Business Roundtable. Some members are in this image, and they stated, and I quote, "We commit to investing in our employees, compensating them fairly, providing important benefits, and supporting them through training and education that helps to develop new skills for a rapidly changing world." Well, in recent weeks, businesses have been challenged to prove this like never before. Some have responded well, others not so well. But the backbone of those resilient companies that have done well is culture. They've moved from a modality of production to creativity, and that's really important because the very survival of a company in the age of the coronavirus depends on a culture that can withstand massive disruption. LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, refitted many of its perfume production lines to make hand sanitizer. And as you probably know, Microsoft, Google, Zoom, and many others made their software free. But the purpose of these companies, and Darren mentioned purpose at the fantastic introduction there, the purpose of these companies goes far beyond the bottom line. Their cultures are strong and they have new leadership imperatives. And those leadership imperatives focus on inspiring humans or human potential rather than driving productivity. Right back to what the Business Roundtable was saying. They now understand that it's a time for we, not I. And the Google research, I think it's the Archimedes project, identified psychological safety, which somebody mentioned earlier, as the number one key element to successful teams. And now I think we can all agree trust has become the only lubricant, if you like, for the frictions caused by the pandemic. It's the only way we're going to get through this. So what does that mean for employees and for development, or their development? At the LPI, we've witnessed an enormous and unprecedented move in L&D. Every organisation was already looking at digital, but now they've been forced to look at digital and virtual solutions. And again, this is an accelerated change from what was already happening, but the difference is now it is urgent. And the significant challenge is in understanding where learning is really happening. And that hasn't always been something that companies have done really very well at all, actually. So this is my son. When he returned from school a few weeks ago, I asked him what he was working on, and he said the Czech Republic. So I asked him what the capital of the Czech Republic was, and he said he knew that and promptly did this. He didn't know it. He had to look it up. But he genuinely believed that by looking at his phone, that he knew it. He didn't think he was sourcing it. He felt that he really knew it by accessing his phone. And we need to understand that graduates in 2021 will all have been born in the 21st century. They'll all have started school the year the iPhone launched, but some of them still are going to be starting work in businesses rooted in 20th century practices, which is not right. But companies now realize the combination of people and technology will create better performance. And the people part of that equation is still important as we move towards digital learning solutions. I really like this slide. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, issued a report on the most employable skills in 2020. At top of the list was critical thinking. Well, let me tell you, without critical thinking, we will end up with answers to exam questions like this. Obviously, America's first president wasn't Getty Images, but that's what it says there. So the role of L&D now is to deliver learning digitally to a potentially remote workforce, reskilling and upskilling, and in many cases in very human content areas. This is the list of the top 10 fastest growing soft skills, or most employable as well in 2020. When we analysed them, we felt that people were learning at work in 2020 these areas, the forward-thinking employers, and we saw an increase in learning about topics like growth mindset, a huge increase in growth mindset and creativity. So it's increasingly important for employees to adopt a growth mindset of continuous learning and be open to change in the workplace, definitely now. Skills training is key. Building an organizational culture and leadership to nurture innovation and creativity is also critical. But employees are now leaning into their innately human skills and what robots can't do. So critical thinking, communication, storytelling, emotional intelligence, they're the kind of things that top the list, as you can see here. But what do I predict will happen in workplace learning? Well, here are my 5 quick predictions before I wrap up. I feel very strongly, or we feel very strongly based on the research we're getting, that skills mapping will chart the future workforce. So you're going to see large-scale technology disruption in the next decade, probably the next year. Continuous skills mapping will become critical for workforce planning. This is an example from the LPI's capability map mapping the learning profession. But forecasting future skills for an organization isn't easy, and it's a common obstacle for companies when they implement reskilling programs, as I'm sure everybody on here knows. The challenge isn't actually old, and new roles aren't always a perfect match for reskilling, so it can be difficult. But for a lot of these future jobs, there are no existing candidates externally with those emerging skills, and internal reskilling can be the next best option. So, for example, Amazon is creating career training paths for its warehouse workers to retool for new in-demand roles as data technicians at the company. So there's a real mix. The second thing I would say is focused capability academies may replace ad hoc training. I think they will, personally. The capability academies are in-depth training initiatives. They're built to develop and sustain skill capabilities that support very specific business strategies and function areas. Companies, in our experience and according to our research, often use an ad hoc approach for their talent building efforts. So they hire new workers equipped with the desired skills or apply ad hoc training when needed. But those quick fix tactics aren't enough to transform an organization and continuously keep up with the pace of technology and business change. Also, communities of practice will help keep skills up to date, but quickly. So to complement in-depth learning offered by capability academies, you'll have social learning communities or enterprise social learning networks. They're on the rise to support learning on the job. So in the software developer world, industry standards change quickly and are often set by consensus. So a group of developers might share a best practice and then the industry will move in a new direction almost overnight. So that's hard to keep up with best practices and to curate the right course material. It's difficult. Undoubtedly, the L&D function will radically reform and a lot sooner than we think. L&D right now is at the center of the fourth industrial revolution and the massive reskilling required. But the old L&D function of the last decade can't really bring that organization into the future. So in 2020, following recent events, we expect L&D teams to radically transform themselves. This will mean reshaping what we call the learning ecosystem to optimize the learner experience. And it will involve using adaptive artificial intelligence and personalization to learning as well. Only 5% of organizations are currently using AI, but 26% said they plan to do it. And then finally, organizations will build an internal talent marketplace, which I guess will be interesting to people here. We're seeing this a lot. The old way of structuring the workforce based on fixed roles is not perhaps the optimal way to support a fast-moving business. Organizations are going to need to shift to more agile and flexible teams, which are focused on projects instead of fixed roles. So that will be, incredibly exciting to try and manage that. I would compare that to how consulting firms or the gig economy operates. Team members are going to be selected for specific projects. And they might work on a number of projects, actually. Organizations are going to need to find a new approach to managing talent in the era of flexible teams and to help managers find the right skills for projects. Overall, these were rapidly changing times already, but now I think we can all see that the accelerator pedal has been pressed down hard and companies are adapting every single second. I believe those with strong cultures and a desire to put learning and people, as others have mentioned in the last few minutes, at the heart of what they do, will undoubtedly have a much higher chance of success. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Edmund. And that was a great insights there. Some real good forethought into that. One of the questions I had is, you mentioned the pedal really being put to the floor against the crisis that it is, and it's forced organisations now to think about what they do and assess the skills. Organisations probably have not been thinking in that way. How would you advise them to begin to start to look and assess what skills they require for the future?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. The larger companies are now implementing their own capability mapping frameworks. So they're looking at the skills that they require on one side and the skills they have internally. So if you look at fast-growing companies like Degreed, who offer different ways to assess skills, but also LinkedIn are mapping the skills required for, I think, almost every job in the world in one of the biggest projects ever in employment. It's going to be the data that will drive that, and there'll probably be a licensing of that data that can take place to build your own frameworks within your own companies. But I don't really see a kind of, silver bullet for this, because every company is different. So it's going to take an element of subjectivity within organizations against the objective frameworks that are built by the large consultancy firm. So, I know what a virtual classroom trainer should have skills-wise, but it might be different within company A to company B in the way that they do things. So it's still an agile response, I think, at the moment, Darren, but the software companies and the data that they have will drive best practice.
And would you advise, you talked about the internal marketplace, do you think that this will mean people to develop within an organisation will need to take on different skills to be considered for projects in the organisation?
Without a doubt. Yeah, I think there's a recent article by Heather McGowan in Forbes who was talking about exactly this. And if you look at, as I started the presentation talking about a comparison between individuals and companies, unquestionably, individuals are going to have to be investing in their own development. The Economist a couple of years ago described lifelong learning as an economic imperative, and that was for companies and individuals. And I don't know, about the talent at the other organisations that are here, but many people that are being recruited, certainly in the younger age ranges as well, are being interviewed and willing to give the company, I'll give you 3 years of my career and then I'm going to be moving on. Mm-hmm. So it's a much more transient workforce. And, I think more power to them in knowing that they want to achieve certain things by certain points. Whereas jobs for life now, don't have the data to hand, but if you compared it to 20, 30 years ago, it would be extreme. And that's an understatement.
Great. Thank you, Ed. I think that's been really, really insightful from all of you today, guys. Thank you so much for putting the effort in and answering the questions for the attendees. I guess I kind of really want to kind of sign off by saying that the questions that you've put forward, what we will do is we will share them with our panelists and I'll hopefully get some more clarity, and which we'll forward on to you. I think Matt is going to send it through a survey to gather your feedback. We would like to do some more sessions like this, which is over the next few months. So your feedback's really, really important, as candid as you can be and constructive you can be. So I'd really appreciate that. And I really, once again, thank you so much to Vicky, Anna and Edmund for your input today. And I hope everybody stays safe, well, and has a very positive outcome out of this, and a new experience. And hopefully that we're all in this together, and as I say, there's no prejudice in this at all, and we're all experiencing the same sort of thing. So vulnerability, I think, is a key thing as well that Anna said. So thank you so much.
Darren,
thanks so much, guys.